If you're looking for a perfect everyday bag that is light, durable, versatile, and hip for this summer, don't miss out on the newest addition to the Knack family of products, the Knack Sling Bag. It looks and feels great, whether at work or at the beach on a hot summer day.
Check out the link in the description to order yours with free shipping on all orders. Thanks to our friends at Knack for sponsoring this episode. If you get a Knack bag, don't forget to post it on social media and tag us at GameOnETV. We want to see you enjoying your Knack bag.
This is Game On, discussing the biggest games and all the latest sports news with Johnny Montalbano and Hank Indictor on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network.
It's showtime, folks. Episode 18 of Game On, presented by Knack, here on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. Johnny Montalbano and Hank Indictor with you. Hank, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. How about yourself, Johnny? I'm ready for that All-Star break.
Yeah, absolutely. All-Star break is here in Major League Baseball, and I'm doing well. You know, another jam-packed episode. You would think in the month of July things would start to slow down for us a little bit, but it has not been the case, and really has not been the case since we started this show several months ago. But it's good to be with you again, Hank, and yeah, I'm looking forward to today. We've got a lot to discuss as we usually do, and of course, folks, we want to hear from you. So feel free to tweet at us. You know, you can follow us on Twitter, GameOnETB. You can message us on Facebook at facebook.com/GameOnETB, or even follow us on our Instagram account at GameOn_ETB. You can also follow us down there, those Twitter, our personal handles on the bottom of your screen. So, Hank, as I said, a lot to get to over the course of the episode. We're going to get into Juan Soto. We're going to get into the baseball stuff, especially Juan Soto. He's made some big news this past week. You know, we've got Tiger Woods to discuss. You know, Deshaun Watson's made the news again. We've even got, you know, one of our favorite times too, NHL free agency, and a lot happened there on day one as well. But Hank, as I wear my Knicks shirt today, you know, I'm a little giddy. Absolutely, you got your Rangers. We got both ends of MSG covered, and that's how it should be here on the show. And we will get into our Rangers, I should say, in just a little bit. But we got to tip things off here with the Knicks, because the big story this week regarding them has been one Donovan Mitchell. The rumors are heating up about him going to the Knicks. The Jazz looking to rebuild pretty much after already making a move this offseason, and now Donovan Mitchell. And it appears that the Knicks are a favorite to land him. I know the Miami Heat have been discussed as well, but you look here regarding the Knicks, and I tell you, I think of this, and I have a few thoughts myself here regarding this. I mean, this broke from The Athletic earlier in the week about the Jazz and the Knicks beginning discussions on a potential trade to send the three-time All-Star to New York. So the Knicks have emerged as a focused destination, the focused destination over the past several days. So when I look at this, you know, the Knicks do have actually some assets that they could move in several first-round picks that they've built up over the last several years, which, you know, we've not been able to say before. They do have some players that they are able to move as well. And look, you have a chance to go out there and get a Donovan Mitchell on this team. You got to go do it. And like I said, the Knicks have, you know, they're in prime shape to go make this move. You know, they've got several first-round picks. They've got players they could deal as well. So before I get into what I really want to see here with this, Hank, when this news broke, and as we talked several days later now about this being maybe a reality, short-term, long-term, what do you think about all this?
I think this is that's really exciting. I really hope, maybe not really so much for my sake, but for your sake, we get Donovan Mitchell. I mean, look, in my honest opinion, I think the Knicks are already shaping up to have a better roster this year than they did the year before. I mean, look, they finally have a point guard. Whether that's a long-term point guard like Charlie Ward was, we'll see. And I'm sorry I keep bringing up that name. But with that being said, what worries me is what they would have to get rid of for Donovan Mitchell, because if you look at Danny Ainge's track record, not just with Utah, but with the Boston Celtics, I still don't even know how he was able to give up Rudy Gobert and get that big of a return. But I guess Danny Ainge is some sort of thief or something. I don't know, but I think if the Knicks have a chance to go after Donovan Mitchell, you get it done. Plain and simple. This is a guy who is simply born to play for the Knicks, and he wants to go there. And I'm not saying they're going to be a team that's a title contender automatically with Donovan Mitchell, but it's a much better squad already. You're going to have so many people wanting to flock to the Garden. And look, just imagine April. The Rangers are going to make another deep run in the playoffs. Think of how big it would be if the Knicks are that good too. I mean, come on, New York sports. This is like the first time in a while we've had like really good New York sports. So it would be awesome.
Yeah, it would be great. Now, I'm not ready to go there just yet if they do get Mitchell. And here's what I would say in regards to getting Mitchell. He wants to be a Knick. I mean, he's made that well known. You know, he's traveled to New York. He's a big Met fan. So, I mean, he wants to be here. And look, it's a star player that wants to be wants to be a Knick. It's something we haven't, heard or seen in such a long, long time. Probably have to go back to Carmelo Anthony the last time this has happened. Now, in regards to getting Mitchell, you brought up Danny Ainge, which is a great point about what he was able to get for Rudy Gobert, and his demands so far for Mitchell have been, through the roof, as you would expect. So I think in the Knicks' best interest right now, I would not be rushing to make this Mitchell trade for like tomorrow. Almost very similar to the Carmelo Anthony situation, which you might have remembered. It might have been. It felt like it was rushed when they could have gotten Carmelo in the offseason, and instead they gave up 4 players and picks to get him back in 2011. I would love him on this team. Look, they're definitely building something, and you're right. They are right now. They've had a very, very good offseason. They've brought in Jalen Brunson. They've extended Mitchell Robinson. RJ Barrett's only getting better, and that's the thing too. You look at it. They've got some building pieces. Jalen Brunson to me doesn't take him over the top. While Donovan Mitchell would be great, I don't think he takes him over the top, but he makes them better. And I think, you're looking at a top 6 team going into next season because the East is still very strong. That's the thing you have to realize here too. Now, in regards to getting Mitchell, you have several first-round picks. You've got young players on this team that are up and coming. Those picks right now, with the way the Knicks are being built, may not matter in 2 or 3 years because you're going to be that good. I would absolutely look into those. It's now when you start getting into the players. And I know that they've talked about this in the beginning. They've wanted Barrett. I know one of the trade requests from Danny Ainge was RJ Barrett. Any trade that involves RJ Barrett should be taken off the table. RJ is not tradable. Now, you want to talk about McBride, you want to talk about Quigley, you want to talk about Obi Toppin. That's a little different. Barrett is shaping up to be a superstar in this league. He has taken strides every year. He had a very good year last year. I think he can absolutely be on superstar level. And you think about now, you've got Brunson, you've got possibly Mitchell, you've got Barrett, you've got Randall, who I still believe is going to bounce back next season. And you've got Mitchell Robinson, and now you've got Harkenstein. It's a pretty good group. It's a pretty good starting group there, and, your bench players as well. You've got the veteran Derrick Rose. You can go out there and fill in some other pieces on the cheap. So I love this idea. I think, though, also in the Knicks' best interest, Hank, it's not to overreact and make this move and overpay for Mitchell. I think this is a situation where if you wait down the road, maybe the price comes down, and you can get him for, let's say, 4 picks and a couple of players. But any deal that requires RJ Barrett, you should say no deal. Let's use a game show reference, Hank.
Oh, I knew it. I knew
you know where I'm going at with this, right? You got that. Danny Ainge has that offer up there. You slam that lid shut if he wants RJ Barrett. So that's where I would go at with here. Mark Stein here, as I see in our chat. One league source advised me in Las Vegas to keep an eye on the Knicks and Lakers discussing a potential Westbrook deal if Leon Rose can successfully bring Donovan Mitchell to Madison Square Garden. Well, look, Russell Westbrook making a ton of money. I'm not really ready to go there in that direction. I like what the Knicks have done so far this offseason. And again, if they get Donovan Mitchell, and we're still waiting to hear that out, the Knicks become a pretty good team, a good team to watch. But it doesn't take them over the top right away. You've still got the Celtics. You've still got the Bucks. You've still got the Miami Heat. You've got, as of right now, I'm still going to put the Brooklyn Nets until I see Durant and/or Kyrie getting traded. They've also got, you've got other teams as well. There's very few teams in the Eastern Conference right now that I say are going to have a bad year right now. The Orlando Magic would be one, but I like what we're doing here in this regard, and I would love to see Donovan be here, but it has to be at the right price. And that right price to me is those multiple first round picks that you've built up for situations like this, and not RJ Barrett. That's where I would go at with this.
Yeah, definitely. I would tend to agree with you on that. If they get rid of RJ Barrett, I think then you can pretty much kiss maybe a little bit of your rebuild out. That pretty much defeats the purpose of rebuilding, no?
Well, see, here's the other thing too with that. So the Jazz are trying to shed salary as well, and they're doing their own rebuild. RJ Barrett's going to have to get paid down the road. It's not that far away before he's going to be up for a contract too. So that's the other thing you think about with this deal is why would the Jazz take an RJ Barrett if they got to pay him in a couple of years? You're almost better off going down the Obi Toppin, Emmanuel Quickly, Miles McBride sort of route. Quentin Grimes is another guy who we saw in the summer league. By the way, the Knicks so close to winning that summer league championship, but I digress. Those are the kind of players, if I'm the Jazz, I'd be looking at, and those first round picks. There's no doubt RJ Barrett right now is shaping up to be a star. If he stays healthy and he continues to build, he's going to be a star in this league. But if your sole purpose is shedding salary and rebuilding and stuff like that, then why almost would you take a Barrett if you're going to have to pay him in a couple of years? So I think you are looking at those. I think this is going to, if this trade does go down, Hank, I'm thinking more along the lines of first round picks. And you've built them up for a situation like this, for Mitchell, for a star player to come here. And he's young too. Mitchell's only 25 years old. So we're not talking about like a Carmelo Anthony situation where he's been in the league for quite a while before the Knicks got him. Mitchell's only been in the league 4 or 5 years or so, and he's only 25. This is really, the Knicks, it's really shaped up for them to go out there and make this move and, be a playoff team. I cannot say just yet contend for the Eastern Conference because the Eastern Conference is still too good. Several years back, a deal like this would absolutely put them over the top in the Eastern Conference. But now you've got a lot of very good teams, like I mentioned. But I like where this is going. And I like the potential. It's got me excited. But I also have to realize, too, this has to happen at the right price. And I think the longer that this goes, the better it works out for the Knicks.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. It's just, again, as I said, it just makes too much sense. And again, it's such a good opportunity for the Knicks. Again, it obviously has to come at the right price because, again, there's certain guys you don't want to lose. But I truly think if you can get Donovan Mitchell in the Knicks lineup along with Brunson, Barrett, and then you have Top in there too, that's a playoff team. Not a title contender. I don't say that unless I generally truly believe that for any of my teams, but
right.
It'll definitely make them better for sure.
And then I think if that does happen, then the real wild card in all this is Julius Randle. Because if you can get the Randle from 2 years ago, then that definitely does help. Otherwise, Randle's clogging up $117 million starting next season, and yeah, that would be a thing to watch. But the Knicks, what they also did this past week, which was very, very smart when you look back at it, was when they signed Jalen Brunson and Mitchell Robinson's contracts, they front-loaded them. And that's smart. And I don't get why more teams don't front-load contracts. Now, you maybe want to say that's from the player's side and from the agent's side, but if there's always an option to front-load a contract, I like to do that. And I think that's smart what the Knicks did in front loading those contracts, so then you don't have to worry down the road if they are struggling and you want to try and get rid of them or deal with them towards the end, then you don't have to worry about paying him so much money. So they front loaded both Brunson and Mitchell Robinson's contract, and I like that. I think that's very, very smart. So far the Knicks have had a pretty good offseason here, with getting Brunson, now the possibility of at least engaging in the Donovan Mitchell trade talks. And I know the Heat have been rumored in there as well, but I think the Knicks have more to offer. And I think, Mitchell's talked about how he always wants to be here. You know what? If you're the Knicks, go out there, don't rush it, do it at the right price, but get this deal done. And you know what you do? You create a lot of excitement at the Garden, to go along with the Rangers. Like you've been saying, Hank, this will be the first time if they get him, this will be the first time in 10 years that you've had two very good teams at the Garden. We go back to that 2012 year, with the Rangers in it and the Knicks with that 54-win season, getting into the second round of the playoffs. I think you look at it, you've got two very, very good teams there at MSG, and gosh, it gets me so excited to look forward to that. So when this had happened, when this report was broke from Shams at the Athletic, I got excited, but I also said, you know what, we have to do this at the right price, because I know I know Danny Ainge's asking price is going to be through the roof, and you've already seen the reports that it is through the roof to start. But the longer that this goes, it's kind of like the Kevin Durant thing too. I think the longer that it goes, the lower his trade value gets. While Mitchell's trade value won't be that low, I think you can get him for less the longer that this goes. And I do think it'll only be a matter of time before they do this. Yeah, I know the 6 first-round picks. And look, again, those first-round picks are in the next few years. You've got young players on the Knicks. It's not like the Knicks are going. They've got Barrett's. Remember, Barrett's still young. He only spent 1 year at Duke. Quickly. The other players. Brunson's still pretty young. I know Robinson's getting up there, but I mean they have. They have several. I know they have several first rounders over the next couple of years. But you know what? You've built all this capital up. Let's use it. That these players are not out there like this. The Knicks had these chances to go out and get these star players before, and nobody's wanted to come here. Go out there and do it. Don't overreact though to it. Do it at the right price, but go do it. Like I said, if I had the choice of giving up players or picks, I give up the picks. That's why they built this up. If not, then we're still rebuilding. And what's the point? The Knicks don't have a star player. Barrett can be that star player, but he's not there yet. I think he can get there in the next year or two. But Mitchell's been proven already. Randall had a great year 2 years ago. Can he bounce back to that? That's going to also be the wild card in all this. So go out there and get it done. I really do. I mean, I'm getting giddy right now. I'm getting excited. We haven't had many exciting moments as Knicks fans, but the possibility of getting a star player in Mitchell to go along with a good young supporting cast, and I understand they're going to trade some of the younger players like a McBride, like a Grimes, something like that. But when you look at these starters that they have right now, those guys are not going to really have a lot of time anyway. So go out there and do it. Come on, Leon, go do it right now. Not right now, but go get it done. All right. The Knicks, they have not been in this kind of position to go out and get a star player via a trade in so long. Probably back to when they did for Carmelo, and people thought they overpaid for him. But you know what? You go out there and you get it done.
So let me do something for good luck. I know this is going to sound strange, but let me
turn
around my screen here. Let me tap Clyde and Ewing for good luck.
There we go. There you go. If this trade happens in the next week or so and they get the right deal, we will look back to this moment. That'll be a top good old James Dolan. Oh, wow. Well, okay. So who's worse? That's when you say good old, that usually means it's usually somebody that's done something. Wow. I'm thinking between Dolan or Manfred. That's tough. You know what, though? See, here's the thing. Dolan overall has been better than Manfred as commissioner because Dolan stayed away from the Rangers for the most part, and the Rangers have been a pretty good team for most of the last 17, 18 years. The Knicks have had 2 good years in the 21st century. Maybe three. But you know what? You go out there. I mean, you have the chance of getting a Mitchell. You go out there and do it. And it's been a good offseason so far. this would take them. This would put the capper on a great offseason. And again, the other thing too, you have to put in perspective here too. Getting a Donovan Mitchell doesn't automatically mean the Knicks are going to be a playoff. Is going to be a top Eastern Conference contender. This will get him into the playoffs. This, I think, will get him out of the play-in tournament. But you still got a lot of good teams in the Eastern Conference. So that's the other thing you have to look at too. That's why you get somebody like a Mitchell and you keep building him up. These young players keep getting better, and then you've got yourself something. Mm-hmm. And I still do trust Tom Thibodeau too in all this. That's another thing to look at too. I know the Knicks had an off year last year. I think a lot of that had to do with Randall more than anything else. And then when Derrick Rose got hurt too, that did not help as well. But I think also because Derrick Rose was forced into a role that really he was not brought back here for. But we'll see. I mean, this is exciting times here potentially for the Knicks. It's got me excited. And of course, I'm also ready for a letdown if this does not happen. Because, we're Knicks fans. We've been down this road before. The star players have not wanted to come here for, whatever reason it is, Dolan, money, better chances to win, all of that. Can't say New York's a basketball town because these star players have not wanted to come here. That's just a flat out reality, truth. Again, the last star player that came here to the Knicks was Carmelo back in that deal that year the Knicks made it to the second round. So we will find out as this offseason progresses. But I tell you, the NBA offseason, it's been fun. I mean, there's been stuff to talk about every week regarding them. And like I said, this is going to be a very player-focused episode. We started with Donovan Mitchell, and now we get to Juan Soto. And boy, Saturday morning, as the day goes on, and Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic tweets out this bombshell that the Nationals reportedly had offered Soto 15 years, $440 million as an extension, and Soto said no. And now the Nationals are going to be entertaining trade proposals. And this is the third different time that the Nationals have tried to extend Soto, and each time his camp has turned it down. Which means which tells me, Hank, right out of the gate before we talk about anything else here, and you could just read his body language at the All-Star festivities on Monday. He wants out of there. You turned down 3 big offers. This one was big because it was years. Annually, not really, because, I say only less than $30 million, which just goes to show you where we're at with baseball. But you look at all this, and Soto, I believe, is going to get dealt. All the makings are there. He's not a free agent for another 2.5 years, so somebody could, buy out his last couple of arbitration years as well. And he's only 23 years old. So to me, It's not a matter of if Soto is going to get traded. It's going to be when, whether it's the August 2nd trade deadline, this off season upcoming, or possibly by next trade deadline. But 3 times now, the Nationals have tried to extend him, and he said no all 3 times. As they say, 3 strikes and out. And to me, Soto is going to be out in Washington soon.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think the writing is definitely on the wall. And you want to know something that's kind of been grinding my gears over the way the media, or like a lot of fans, have been treating this? Like, people are shaming Juan Soto for rejecting the $440 million offer. And, like, they're probably accusing him of being, like, disloyal or whatnot, which, okay, that may be the case, but, like, at the same time, he's a major league player. He's within his rights to accept or reject whatever deal comes his way. That's not the point. They're going to give him backlash for that, but yet they'll give Trout a hard time saying, oh, why did you extend this offer so-and-so with the Angels? Like, that makes no sense. I get why Juan Soto rejected that offer. You look at what's happened to the Nationals over the past few years. You had Bryce Harper. He ends up going to the division rival. You have Anthony Rendon. He goes to the Angels, and probably there was a reason why the Nationals didn't really want to go down the road of signing him that the Angels learned the hard way, and that was the injury issues. I get that. But then the ironic part about that is the guy that they did end up choosing to re-sign Steven Strasburg, he can't stay healthy either. So no wonder Juan Soto isn't going to go and stay with the Washington Nationals, who've pretty much disintegrated since that World Series title. And looking back at that World Series title, doesn't it look more and more by the day that 2019 was a fluke? I mean, after all, they started 19-31 and they found a way to make the playoffs, and they had to come back in that wild card game just to even get to the Dodgers series.
Yeah, sometimes you get hot at the right time, and it can extend for a long period that year, and you just ride the wave, and that's what it was. And let's also not forget Trey Turner was on the team, and now he's with the Dodgers. That was another deal.
Scherzer too.
Was that?
Scherzer's gone too.
Yeah, Scherzer's gone. The two guys, like you said, they've really kept in all this besides Soto was, like you said, Strasburg and Patrick Corbin.
Corbin's been like fizzled out too.
Yeah, I mean, he's having a very off year this year for sure, and they may be trying to look at possibly dealing him if possible before the deadline as well. So Soto spoke on Monday at the All-Star festivities leading into the All-Star game and said, quote, "A couple of weeks ago they were saying they will never trade me, and now all these things come out. You don't know who or what to trust." And yeah, we've learned that for sure. Yes, you read Soto's body language when he says this stuff and you look at it. I mean, there's no doubt that he wants out of there. And, you can't really blame him. You look at what the Nationals have been doing ever since. And I've always thought that they were going to be a 90-loss team this year. And I've seen their games. I was watching some of their series over the weekend against the Braves as I really focused in on that Mets-Braves battle in the NL East. And they're just not any good. They might look at another fire sale right now. And the question would come really, would you get more for Soto before the deadline, or would you wait till the offseason to try and move him? I mean, there are definitely teams that would be interested. And we've heard, some reports we've heard about the Mets being a fit. We've heard, the Yankees always are rumored to get anybody and everybody. And, the Angels have had some talks, even the Padres as well. We've heard rumblings about the Mets. In fact, SNY did say that the Nationals do see the Mets as one of the few fits for Soto, and they would ask for 3 prospects in return. And you look at the Mets here, and we've mentioned how the Mets do need another big-time bat in this lineup. And, boy, Juan Soto would really be the answer. And Steve Cohen's not afraid to spend. He would go out there and spend that money. I wonder, though, going back to just Soto here for a second, Hank, with all these offers that he's turned down, it's almost like he wants more money per year than really the years. It's different than the Freeman situation. It's different than the Aaron Judge situation right now, because Judge and Freeman both were telling you that they wanted more length. And Soto, to me, I think it's more money per year, because 15 years at $440 million, it averages out to just under $30 million a year. He's probably pushing. He wants to push more than 40. I mean, if Mike Trout can get it now, let's be fair. Mike Trout's a better all-around player than Juan Soto, but Soto's also only 23, and you could get him. Let's just say, for the heck of it, let's go 10 years and $500 million. Let's make him the first $50 million player in baseball history. 10 years would take him to his age 33, age 34 season. Could you see somebody like the Mets doing that? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, the other thing's going to be trade him in division. Look, if you're the Nationals, you're rebuilding. I don't care who you're trading him to. You just go out there and do it. If you go to the Mets, you ask them for that, their catcher Alvarez, one of their starters, and maybe a major league player like a Dom Smith even, and something else down the road. I mean, he's going to garner a flurry of prospects. There's no doubt about it. I'm just saying you start there with that. And as well with the Mets, Jacob deGrom, he's close to coming back. If he comes back and he's anywhere close to the deGrom that he's been the last few years, he's going to opt out, and he's going to want $30 to $40 million per year. You could take that money for deGrom if he opts out, let him walk, at age 34, and you go out there and extend Soto.
Mm-hmm.
So I absolutely could see him make. How about that's what I would do if I'm a team. Let's say I'm the Mets. 10 years, $500 million.
Yeah, I think you probably would take that offer considering it's New York. You consider where the Mets are at this point, and yeah, you look at that current team, it would definitely make sense. But yeah, I also, as I said, I totally there was no doubt in my mind he wasn't going to that he was going to reject whatever offer the Nationals were going to give him because, as I said, it's crazy that team won the World Series like just a few years ago, and then again, that was literally right before the pandemic, so it kind of does feel like a while ago at this point.
Back in February, Soto turned down 13 years, $350 million. So it just goes to show you, I mean, the Nationals are going all in here. 13 years, $350, 14 of 15, $440. He wants out. And if I'm the Nationals, I'm not going anywhere this year. The team making a playoff push can give you a boatload of prospects. You're starting over. Maybe you ask for one major league player in that return as well. Like I'd say on the Mets, I think Dom Smith's the perfect guy there. If you think about it, because Josh Bell is in the last year of his contract, he's probably going to get traded, you would imagine, by August 2nd. So there's a way to look at it there too.
Then again, I feel like a lot of these offers are probably going to be attempts to up his trade value or something.
I mean, look, it's there. You could trade for him, not even give him an extension, and he's still under control for 2.5 years. Because he doesn't become a free agent for another 2.5 years. He's arbitration eligible. So even if you trade for him, don't extend him, you still get 2.5 years of him. So, I mean, really, I mean, the Nationals really right now, I mean, they've done everything they could. And, yeah, you do it to raise his value. But, I mean, they've actually are playing the right cards in that regard because 2.5 years of team control, that's – that word control, we've heard about it before. It's regarding one Yankee whose name I don't know if you want me to mention, but I think you know where I'm going at.
Mm-hmm.
Even if the Yankees with the best record in baseball still don't want me to talk about it.
I'm thinking of a certain big, tall guy who wears number 99.
Oh, no, but I mean, I was talking about control. I was even mentioning Joey Gallo. That's really why Gallo's still on this team is, the control.
Oh, you mean the waste of space, walk, strikeout, home run guy? Yeah.
Right. But yeah, no, Aaron Judge too. And that's the thing I was bringing up regarding the Yankees here, Hank. And Judge has turned down an 8-year extension before the season started. And because, the Yankees side of it, you look at it here from the Yankees side, and Soto's a left-handed guy versus 23 years old versus Judge, who's a right-handed guy. They've already got multiple guys there, and he's 31. So would you make that deal for Soto and not extend Judge? Now, that's a tough thing because Judge is a lifelong Yankee. I get that. And that's you have to look at that angle too. But, I mean, from a baseball perspective, Soto's a left-handed guy who they don't really have many in that lineup, and he can be in the control for so long. Judge now is on the north side of 30. And I know he's having a great year this year heading into, free agency. But that's something you would have to think about too if you're the Yanks. Would you trade not re-signing Judge for Soto? I don't think the Yanks are going to do that strictly because they have been so spent on keeping Volpe, keeping Peraza, keeping Dominguez. They're starting pitchers down in the minors as well. They're big-time prospects. I mean, this is not Georgia's Yankees. They've been so strict on keeping those guys, and I think even a guy like Juan Soto is not going to change their mind. So I don't see the Yankees as a fit. I don't know if the Angels would go down this road again with giving another big-time contract because they've been doing that to some players like a Rendon and a Trout, and it's not really panned out that well. Padres, maybe. That's another team that I know John Heyman had been mentioning as a possibility. Now, remember, the Padres gave Fernando Tatis all that money, and I know it really hasn't really kicked in yet because I think he's only making $7 million and then $9 million for the next couple of years. So his big-time salary hasn't really kicked in yet either. But those are some names. Those are some teams and some names that we've heard of. But with the trade deadline 2 weeks away, do we see? I definitely could see the case of Soto getting traded. I just don't know where. I mean, really, realistically, of all those teams that I mentioned, the team that I think would need him the most is the Mets. And I think they're the team that would not be afraid to go out there and spend that money and trade whoever they needed to trade. Like, let's just say here for a second, let's put our GM hat on for 1 second. Like I've said for the Mets, you talk about Alvarez, their catching prospect. You talk about one of their starting pitchers. Even if you want to say, even though he's hurt right now, you want to say maybe a Tyler or McGill. Another couple of players and stuff. Maybe one of the draft players they had in the draft most recently, and Dom Smith. Dom Smith could play every day down there in D.C. Josh Bell's going to be gone.
Yep.
I mean, it's not crazy to think that that's the team that I think.
It definitely makes a lot of sense. I think they have a few tradable names in that lineup. You put Juan Soto in there, and Dom Smith, I always kind of felt was going to be the odd man out in that lineup anyway, since like he had to spend a certain amount of time in the minor leagues. So yeah, no, for sure. I think he definitely would be a good one. I'm sure there's another name too, but yeah, I definitely can see the Mets as being.
Dom's got to play every day. That's the thing.
Oh yeah, no,
and Alonso being there,
he can't. It's a logjam where he.
Yeah, I mean, remember he was rumored to go to the Padres when the Mets were almost going to bring in Chris Paddock and Eric Hosmer, and fortunately that trade fell through for the Mets. So.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Dom's going to get dealt at some point because the Mets are going to make a move for somebody. And you've brought up the name before, Nelson Cruz, another guy there down in Washington. So, Josh Bell maybe, but Josh Bell and the Mets would not make much sense unless there was a serious injury somewhere down the line. But we'll find out. The only other factor with that Nationals-Mets proposal that I'm putting out there is the divisional angle to all this. Would you want to see your star player on your division rival, for several times per year? But I think if you're the Nationals, you got to put that behind you and go out there and get it done. I think it's going to happen. We'll just have to find out where it is. I mean, all the makings are there, and it's a perfect fit for somebody because 2.5 years of control, then you can extend them, or you could extend them, like you said, do 10 years. That's what I threw out there. 10 years, 450, or dare I say 500 million, and that'll do it. He wants to be the first $50 million a year player. That's the way to do it. He's 24 years old. That'll take him to his age 33, age 34 season, and then he could still get, dare I say, get even another contract after that, even though he came up as a 19-year-old.
That's nuts.
Yeah, it's
guys younger than we are, and he has a chance to make some serious bank. Oh my gosh.
Well, it's funny because I'm 31. I'm going on 32 real soon here, and I see all these younger players getting all this money and stuff, and I'm like, wow, it's crazy. I'm getting old now, and you look at all these younger players coming up and up and up in all sports, really, and being to do this. But remember, Soto came up at 19. He came up really young. So did Harper. So that's just the way things are going now. But yeah, this is a big thing as the All-Star festivities happen out there with baseball. The one thing I would say about the All-Star game, and I might tune in for a little bit later on. It's tough though, because I know this is going to be an unpopular opinion, but I'm going to say it anyway. The All-Star game to me got worse when they got rid of home field advantage. That was the one thing I liked about it. I did like the fact that home field was based off the All-Star game, because I think the game meant something. It's the one All-Star game of the 4 major sports that there's actually low-scoring defense played because of the pitching perspective. But I like the fact, and I think this might be one of the few times you and I disagree here, Hank, is I like the fact that the home field advantage was based on the game. Because you look at it now, look at all these players, whether it's injury, whether it's the pitching, or anything that's happened, or whatever the case, that are dropping out. I mean, the original fan vote, how many of those players are still there? Our colleague Nick Morganson did a Sports Minute on this on Monday, and he brought up a thing about, I think it's like 1/5 of the players that were voted in now are out for whatever the reason, injury, starting pitchers pitching on Sunday, not being eligible, or anybody just dropping out in general. I mean, it's like, what's the point?
Yeah, no, it's really nuts. In a way, it feels like the All-Star Game's becoming sort of a participation thing because, you've got probably a good chunk of players at this point are getting voted into the All-Star Game now as we sit here on this day. So, yeah, I definitely tend to agree with what Nick said. And by the way, I'm going to have to rebut what you said about the home field advantage voting. I get where you're coming from to an extent, and I wouldn't say I entirely disagree because it did make the All-Star Game worth it, and I won't lie, it was kind of fun. But when I think of the All-Star Game, to me, the All-Star Game is meant to be more of a fun exhibition sort of game. And I don't know. I've never entirely been in love with the idea of putting something like home field advantage for a World Series at stake when at the end of the day, most of these players in the All-Star Game aren't even going to be in the World Series anyway. So yeah, that's just me. It's never something I've been entirely in love with, but yeah, I get where you're coming from though.
I just say it because it's the one game where it's low scoring, where it looks like, both sides are actually playing really hard. And it just makes it cool that, let's say in the 9th inning, that it's a 1-run, like back in the day, let's say even, the AL's leading by 1 run and Mariano Rivera comes in and faces 3 National League All-Stars.
Sure.
And you've got a postseason home field advantage riding on the line. It actually turns that exhibition into something that means a whole lot more, and it creates for a major moment. For a league that is struggling to market its players, one of the many things that Major League Baseball has a problem with, I feel like that did promote it in some way in seeing all those big moments and seeing those big players against a star closer with postseason spot on the line. And I get the angle that sometimes the players that are playing are not going to be in the postseason, but there's still all-stars at the end of the day. There are still great players on bad teams.
Right.
So I that's the angle that I would take it. I did like that when they did away with it. I think it makes the game on Tuesday later on tonight. I think it makes it even less relevant. It takes it a tough sell. The home run derby, to me, not a fan of the bracket. The best part to me of the All-Star festivities for a while was the celebrity softball game.
Oh yeah, that was pretty
and I don't think that's even being televised because after the Derby Monday night, you had the first installment of the Captain Series, which happened so late. I DVR'd it. I'm going to watch it later on, but I'm looking forward to that, and I'm sure we will bring that up at some point down the road. That whole Captain Series, that's going to be epic, a must watch, all the parts. But yeah, that's where I would get at with this. Yet again, I think this is another problem that baseball's got. And this one, for whatever reason, I don't think really it's the fault of anybody. It's just an unfortunate situation with the injuries that are happening, the starting pitchers that pitch on the Sunday before the All-Star game. It's kind of unfortunate, but it also does away. You try and get fans involved in voting, and then a lot of them can't even participate. It's kind of a struggle.
Yeah, no, I think it's a real shame because as we both alluded to, regardless of our opinions of the home run or the home field advantage thing or whatnot, I think the All-Star game has definitely declined format-wise, and I think we know who to blame for that.
Yeah, I'm reading this report.
And also, can I get back to you on the home run derby? I loved the old format where it would be as much home runs as you can before you get to 10 outs. I feel like with the timed format, it's just now you're forcing yourself. It doesn't.
You know what? They're trying to speed it up like they're trying to speed up the game.
Which means you'll never again see another Josh Hamilton performance like he had at Yankee Stadium July 14th, 2008.
No, that was amazing. I still remember that quite well. And, trying to speed up the game, they're trying to do in some ways. I'll say this real quick before we move on. I went to a minor league game. I went to my Myrtle Beach Pelicans, my minor league affiliate down here, the low A affiliate of the Chicago Cubs. And I went there last week after the show, and they have the pitch clock down there. And I'll tell you, that actually, I wasn't a big fan of the pitch clock at first, and I know that's going to be implemented in the majors next year. Mm-hmm. It works. The game went really fast. Now, there's not many commercials. They don't, they swing away. They don't go deep into the count really that much. I mean, they'll hack. But that was that could work. That'll work in Major League Baseball. Now, everything else, probably not. But that did. And also, by the way, congratulations to the Pelicans. Second team no-hitter on Sunday night. They are one of the best teams in all the minors. They are really good. Something to watch. I'll be glued in as the minor league playoffs start because they are really good this year.
You gonna go to any of the playoff games?
I have to look. I think the minor league playoffs start when I'm on vacation from my main job, so it's possible, but I would have to look at it exactly when it could be. I mean, I won't rule it out. Right now, it's not in my plans, but it would be pretty cool to go see a minor league playoff game.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. Like, I've never really been to too many minor league games. I mean, if I ever go back to my parents' house, maybe one of these days I ought to go to a Hudson Valley Renegades game, especially now that the Yankees have that team again. And I think for most of my life, that pretty much was the closest minor league team to where I was. And, maybe one day I'll make a drive up to Scranton. Although I went to a Scranton Rail Riders game once. That was like years ago. I'd love to maybe make that return again, not just because Scranton's the place where one of my favorite shows takes place in. Yes, I am a big Office fan for it.
Oh, yes, absolutely. No, I think minor league baseball is really cool. I always advise people to go ahead and,
I wish I had the chance to see the Staten Island Yankees too.
And you know what? You never know who you'll see. I mean, I always tell the story back in 2014 that I saw Mookie Betts had a 5-hit, 5 RBI game against the Pelicans, and then the very next year he went from A-ball to the majors in about a year. So you never know who you'll see. And I saw some other guy on rehab assignment, so it's always a cool thing. And then I just missed Ben Zobrist on a rehab assignment by a couple of days down here several years ago. So you never know. It's cool, but we'll find out. And then when we come out of the All-Star break in baseball, you've got 2 weeks till the trade deadline, and then next week, huge 2-game series. Yankees-Mets over at Citi Field before they shift over to Yankee Stadium in August, and that is going to be huge when you look at how the Yankees and the Mets are doing, and we will get into that more on episode 19 next week. But, Hank, let's switch gears here. Staying on this player-themed episode, let's talk about Tiger Woods because, he was in – and not even just the Open, the 150th Open, which was a crazy event, a crazy finish as well. But he made news before the Open at St. Andrews last week talking about, the LIV Tour. And he was very critical of the LIV Tour in his press conference, saying that, quote, they turned their back on the PGA Tour as we find more players now are joining the LIV Tour. And look, I think there's no better player to really talk about this than Tiger Woods because to me, until the LIV Tour gets a player like Tiger Woods, and what I mean by that is a player that, was as great as Tiger and in the past and name recognition, then to me, I still don't think the LIV Tour is going to be anything until that happens. Now, look, that Saudi-based league has billions of dollars. I remember it's like $850 billion. I know we spoke about it a while back, but until they get that, I can't get into the LIV Tour. I can't get into it for other reasons, but Tiger's right, and in terms of all this, and it's shaping up to be a very, very crazy thing here because you're going to find more players going in. And we found out earlier this week that now we've got analysts going to join the LIV Tour, and it's not even still on TV yet. It's streaming. And maybe that's just a sign of the future. But yeah, these Tiger comments, they were very, very bold.
Yeah, no, I took a little bit of a look at these, and look, I could call out Tiger Woods for saying, oh, they turned their back considering like his personal life, but I'm really not going to go there. Looking past that and knowing sort of what I know now about what Liv does and how Liv like paid all these guys like a boatload of money, but the caveat is they're also a group. It's also an organization that like what, don't they like donate a lot of money to the Saudis or something?
It's a Saudi Arabian finance circuit.
Oh yeah, no. As much as I'm not the biggest Tiger Woods fan, like for reasons I don't really want to get into, I can't say he's wrong about this because I think he said it best. The PGA Tour is one of the oldest traditions in the history of golf. It's got a lot of history, and for all these players to like go against that and sell out, it's a pretty bad look, and I can totally see why you wouldn't want to be supporting Live golf.
Here's some of Tiger's comments. Who knows what's going to happen in the near future with world rankings points, the criteria for entering major championships. The governing body is going to have to figure that out. Some of these players may not ever get a chance to play in major championships. That is a possibility. We don't know that for sure yet. It's all up to the major championship bodies to make that determination, but that is a possibility that some players will never, ever get a chance to play in a major championship, never get a chance to experience this right here, walk down the fairways at Augusta. That, to me, I just don't understand it. And, and we also just found out also that Henrik Stenson joined the Live Tour. But again, Henrik Stenson, he's okay. I mean, he's not the first guy that I think about in golf. And, what has he done recently? That's another thing too. And so all these guys that are going over there, I hate to break it to you, they're not great players. They're okay. They're good. They're not great. You would have to get like a McIlroy or like a, like the world number one ranker to go over there. And then maybe we can talk. And I know why they're going over there. They're going there for the money. I mean, when you see how much they're getting paid, I understand that. But I also know at the same time who's financing all that. So, and we're still waiting to find out if it's official about Cam Smith, who won the Open. Right after his press conference, one of the first things he gets asked is if he was going, because there were reports that he was going over there. So it's shaping up to be an ugly thing. So,
and for Tiger to come out and say that really says something.
Yeah, and he's been pretty quiet about this. That's why this was really a big deal. He really not brought it up if at all, up until when he was speaking at St. Andrews. And then, that one thing I will say, when you look at the actual Open Championship itself, and you saw Tiger that emotional drive that emotional walk on 18, because they don't go back to St. Andrews until 2027. And we don't even know how long Tiger's going to still be able to play. I mean, he's really only playing the major tournaments right now as he still works his way back from that horrific accident. And so that could be the end of an era there. So, yeah, it was quite a week for Tiger, between these comments and then, the last, possibly his last time at St. Andrews, for sure. But, yeah, it's, this whole thing, it's, in some ways, it's kind of uncomfortable to discuss, but I'm a big golf guy, and I'll be honest with you, I continue to watch the PGA Tour. I will watch some of like these other, if there's nothing else on, I'll pop on the Golf Channel and I'll see some of the other leagues that are going on. This Live Tour stuff, I can't find a way to get into it. And look, until some network takes it on, and I don't think and I'll be honest with you, I don't think any network's going to take on the Live Tour. Between the history of its finding and everything else, and you look at how much money they're making and what they're doing on streaming, there may not even need a need to be on TV. But I just can't. But we'll find out, there are more players that are joining it. I mean, obviously they're joining it for the money. There's no other reason why they would. You can sit there and say anything you want. This is the amount of money these guys are getting over there to play. And again, 48 to 50 players playing. I mean, maybe your chances of winning a tournament and some of these purses are crazy, but to me, it's not golf. That's the other thing too. It's not golf. It's not me. It's not professional golf. Maybe stuff that you do like down here, golfing capital of the world here in South Carolina. You go do that's one thing, but doing on a major level, that's not what the Live Tour is. And they're just, they can get all these guys they want. That's fine. But you know what? Until you get somebody with a name recognition, and don't tell me Phil, because Phil's not Tiger. All right. And I'm just saying that right now. Phil is not Tiger. All right. Phil, I'm watching on this. I tried watching this whole. I mean, it looked like either A, he couldn't care less, or B, he can't drive a ball anymore. So, yeah, it's a tough thing over there. But I thought that was a very, very interesting thing to see Tiger come out. And, McIlroy also spoke this week. And, Rory, unfortunately, looked like he was going to make a run at it, and then he fell off the final day or so. But Rory also made some comments this past week too. But, yeah, until, the Live Tour, when they get a big-time player, then we can talk. And maybe that time may come down the road. It's not coming now, though. And even still, who knows what they're going to be able to do. But those guys that league's got money hand over fist. And, yeah, so we'll find out what happens there. Hank, big week in the NHL. Free agency started last week. Ton of moves on day one. And so the big one this past week was obviously Johnny Gaudreau. Before we get into our Rangers, Gaudreau and the NHL free agency as a whole, what do you take away from it?
Well, let me to say that I am absolutely shocked would be an absolute understatement. And let me tell you why. Because for the past 5, 6, maybe 6 years, maybe longer, all we've been hearing about is how Columbus is pretty much like the NHL's version of Siberia. It's a middle of nowhere market that doesn't deserve a hockey team. It's essentially what Winnipeg is seen as in Canada. And for Johnny Gaudreau to be going there instead of the Islanders and the Devils, first of all, I may be biased in the fact that I'm saying that those are two undesirable free agent destinations because, well, yeah, look at my background, for crying out loud. But not to mention, if I look past my personal bias as a Ranger fan, let me look at the big picture here. I would have assumed that he was going to go to the New Jersey Devils. And let me tell you why. Look at all the young talent they have. You got putting him with Jack Hughes on the same team, Damon Severson, to add another name to it. And, you also turning down the Islanders, although the Islanders, that something tells me him turning down the Islanders had a good amount to do with Lou Lamoriello and how out of touch he might be, because I'm starting to think this guy is at the point where, maybe it's time for him to retire. But for him to go to Columbus, who doesn't really have a lot of superstars on that team, I thought that was pretty strange. And he turned down a lot of money that the Devils offered him too. That's the crazy part.
Yeah, that was for sure. And that it was almost like the Gaudreau sweepstakes we were waiting for, because like you said, there were a couple of teams that were interested in him. I focus on the Rangers, and we had spoken last week about what they were going to do with goaltender, and they ended up getting Louis Domingue signed, Yaroslav Halak signed. So they definitely were able to shore up the backup goaltender position, which I was saying, I think you needed a veteran guy back there behind Igor, and I think Halak could be that guy.
Mm-hmm. Also, can I expand on the Gaudreau thing just for a bit?
Absolutely.
You know who else probably could have had a chance to get him? The Philadelphia Flyers. They had a little bit of cap space, but instead they used it to sign Rasmus Ristolainen, and they traded for Tony DeAngelo.
Tony DeAngelo, yeah.
I'm sorry, but how do how do I not take this opportunity to just point and laugh at the Philadelphia Flyers for somehow making those moves and then not taking Goodrow, especially when he wanted to play for that franchise. And Lord knows how many people would actually want to play for that team. But again, that's another biased Rangers fan take.
No, that's for sure. And I know at least on the Rangers side of things, both Frank Vitrano and Ryan Strome signed with the Ducks. But you were talking to me about how you thought that was going to be difficult to keep both of those guys. But, Louis Domingue, 2-year contract. How about, Halak got a 1-year deal? But this is the one really also. How about Vinnie Trotchak signing 7-year deal? He had 51 points in 81 games last year with Carolina. So what did you think about that move? So he's 29. He had 21 goals in 81 games for Carolina last season and 6 goals, 4 assists, and 14 Stanley Cup playoff games.
I think that was definitely a good move for the Rangers because, well, the center depth was an issue all year long. You're getting a guy who can definitely win faceoff, so I think that's definitely very important to put him up there on the second line. And look, I'm not going to lie. Is it an overpaid contract? Absolutely, but unfortunately, that's the way NHL free agency is. Sometimes you're going to have to pay a little bit extra just to get a guy who can fill a need. And I think Vinnie Trotchak. Gosh, what is up with me today?
You're good.
I'm sorry. Put that in the funny reel. But Vinnie Trotchak, I think he's definitely an upgrade over Ryan Strome. Unfortunately, we know what happened with him, but I think he definitely had to go. And he's also an upgrade over Andrew Kopp, just slightly. I would have loved to see Kopp come back too, but it's obvious that with the way the salary cap was, even though Detroit gave him kind of a cheaper little deal, I think it's clear to me he wasn't really in the Rangers' plan. So yeah, getting a center like Trotchak who can play defense, he'll score goals, and he can win faceoffs. I think that was definitely a very good get for the Rangers. And look, losing guys like Strome and Kopp hurt, and I think some of the other losses they had were pretty tough too. But ultimately, I think the Rangers are definitely a better team at this point. Have definitely gotten a step better this offseason. Now, I think the other big question for the Rangers was I heard Patrick Kane's name be put up there in terms of Rangers trade rumors.
I have seen
I would love for that to happen, but my only concern is who are you going to be giving up? Because I think this is probably the year where we finally can see if Capo is who we thought they were. Well, first of all, they got to find a way to re-sign Capo too. But if you can put him, if you can see what you got out of him, see what you get out of Lafreniere, who I think is going to have a really big year for the Rangers, Alexis Lafreniere. That might be something to think about. And then there's also a lot of prospects in the minor leagues that, they're probably going to want to keep. I think Othman's the guy that I would say is probably untouchable. He's the one that's been posting a lot of really good numbers for them in their minor league system. And then I think Cully's a guy who might be movable, but again, it's going to take a good amount. But let me get straight to the point. Put him on the same line with Panarin, and you have Trotchak there. Who's stopping that? Good luck.
Yeah. I'll say this. The two things I've talked about that the Rangers needed to do this offseason, they did during the free agency. Veteran backup goaltender and a center who can win faceoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And they've done that. Just with those two moves, Halak and Trotchak. And even signing Louis Domingue, as a veteran as not a veteran, but as a backup to the backup, just as some depth down in the minors as well. I thought that was crazy, Louis Domingue signing with the Rangers. I thought that was something, but just have another option down there in case an injury or something happens. So, but yeah, so far, I thought the Rangers did what they needed to do in that regard. Those were two areas of need, I believe, that they needed, because we all saw in the playoffs, or even during the season too, how they could not win a faceoff at all. And those are little things that could help you. But it looks like they're keeping the core of this group together. Vitrano and Strome were great last year, especially when they brought in Vetrano from Florida. He was great, and Strome had a career year as well. But like you said, it was kind of inevitable that was going to happen with those guys.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, looking back at Ryan Strome, he definitely was a great Ranger, and probably one of Jeff Gorton's best moves was trading one of the guys that came in the Rick Nash deal and turning him into Ryan Strome. And Ryan Strome was a pretty good center his first few years, especially him and Panarin were really good on the same line together in the 2019-2020 season. But then, unfortunately, this past season, he dealt with some injuries, especially in the playoffs. And then after all those occasions where he just was missing the empty net and who knows what they were going to pay him, I think they definitely had to let him walk. But I hope he does well with the Anaheim Ducks. And he's going to be joining Frank Vetrano with that team. So the one tough part about this offseason was a lot of the Rangers trade deadline acquisitions ended up having to leave. But with that being said, I said then that the Rangers did the right thing making those trades because all they really gave up were some like draft picks and like maybe one young player that was Morgan Barron. I think I still would have done those deals all over again. I don't think the Rangers make that deep run without them.
Oh, absolutely. And for Toronto,
I'm hoping I would love for them to find a way to be able to re-sign Tyler Mott. I think he was definitely an unsung hero during the Rangers playoff run. He's another guy who can win faceoffs, and he's a fourth line center that you need if you're going to be a cup contender.
I mean, if you think about when they brought in for Toronto, really they brought him in as a depth piece, like a fourth line center, and he scored some big goals early on. And really, I mean, they paid dividends just in that. I mean, he really did do well, and that was part of the reasons why it was such a successful year for the Rangers. You know, you bring in guys like that, and it helps you make a deep run. But now you try and build off of that and get ready less than 3 months away from the start of the NHL season. You know, it's getting me excited. You know, the possibility that the Knicks could go get Mitchell, the Rangers, you know, what they're doing, you know, the fall's coming up. So football's almost around the corner, and that's going to be fun. Speaking of football, Hank, you know, we'll close out the show with one final story. And what wouldn't an episode of Game On be without, no, not talking about just good old Rob Manfred, but Deshaun Watson. You know, the latest news now with Watson as we continue to wait to find out the length of his suspension, whatever that's going to be, as training camps open up. So this story broke from Charles Robinson of Yahoo on Monday, and saying that Deshaun Watson and the NFLPA will look to sue the NFL in federal court if he is suspended for a season. I'm like, so wait a second now. So Deshaun Watson now is going to be playing victim in all of this? I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. First of all, the suspension should be at least more than one full season. And now we're looking at Deshaun wanting to play the victim in all this. I mean, you've got to be kidding me. This is shaping up to be. See, this is the thing too that we're looking at now. So now, if it's a season, Deshaun Watson's going to play victim. If it's less than a season, it's going to make the NFL look really, really bad. This is shaping up to be something very, very epic. That's why the best thing that could come out of all this really would be the word indefinite. You're not going to have lifetime ban. You're not going to have – it's not going to go down that road just yet. But indefinite's the best way to go because, like I said, you know, now if he's suspended for a season, Deshaun's going to claim victim. And if it's less than a season, it's just going to make the NFL look terrible and all this. I've said this before, Hank, this is the one thing that I think the NFL has a very tough time in doing, and that is length of suspensions in cases like this. And I don't know. I mean, now it's looking more and more that we could be looking at possibly this dragging into training camp, which means that Deshaun Watson is going to be allowed on the field at Cleveland Browns training camp, unless the Browns, you know, pull what the Texans did, but they're not going to do that. They just gave them all that guaranteed money. Mm-hmm. So it's a really, really ugly situation. Well, it's been ugly since day one, but this is now shaping up to be almost a whole nother level with what's going on here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is going to be one of those news stories that I'm really not looking forward to. And yeah, he's got some nerve. Like all those women accusing him and for him to just act like he's a victim.
So Charles Robinson, a couple of tweets. He's the senior NFL writer for Yahoo, NFL reporter for Yahoo. He put out 2 tweets on Monday. Sources in the Watson case believe arbitrator Sue Robinson's decision could bump up against or even overlap with the first few days of Brown's camp. One opinion offered on the timeline is that she may be taking her time to give the league and Watson another shot at settling. And then this one, which is also on our graphic here. If Watson ends up incurring the full year suspension the NFL is seeking, either from the arbitrator or a league appeal of Robinson's decision, I'm told his camp and the NFLPA have already made the decision to file a lawsuit against the league in federal court. Yeah, it's just absolutely awful what's going on here.
Yikes. That's all I can say. Yikes.
I believe Browns camp opens up on the 27th. We already have some camps opening up as we speak. But, yeah, as we get closer and closer, and that's the thing I'm thinking about too, you know, one of the things I remember reading early on is they wanted to have a decision by the time camp opened up. And now the more it looks like now we may be heading towards a decision during camp. And just think about the optics of the fact that Watson's going to be, I mean, if they don't make a decision by the time camps opens up, he's going to be allowed to be there because he technically is not suspended. So he will be allowed to be there. You know, the Texans, I mean, remember the Texans did carry him on the roster last year, but they just never activated him or used him in a game.
Right.
And you know, the Browns are not going to do that. I mean, they've paid him $230 million guaranteed. So he's going to be there. So this is now shaping up as each day passes. It's shaping up now to be an absolute, you know, fight and almost possibly court now, the way this is going.
Yeah, no, and imagine if he does play. Like, think of all the backlash he's going to be getting over the course of the season, and look how many NFL fans are going to be booing him. It's going to be absolutely nuts.
You know, I think the thing too also is if Calvin Ridley doesn't get this 1 year suspension for what he did, then that's what I think I'm always measuring it up against. You suspended somebody for a full season for gambling, yet this, which is much worse, could be less than a year.
Mm-hmm.
Or possibly him at least opening up camp, which we didn't think was going to be possible. I mean, that's why the best thing they could do is indefinite. And I don't know if they can do that, but indefinite would be the best thing. Lifetime ban it's not going to go down that road. But I think indefinite is the best thing to do. But think about now if this is a year, if this is the case. And you wonder now as this drags out that's the thing too, as this drags out, it's going to get worse. You know, if they were able to make this decision,
mm-hmm.
if they do indefinite, Deshaun would have to apply for reinstatement. Yeah, that's how it should be. I mean, what he did, I mean, that's what should be the case. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, Calvin Ridley can get a year for gambling, and yet, you know, Watson can go out into training camp while all this is still going on. See, this is the biggest problem the NFL has had. The optics of some of these things just looks really bad. We've seen it with some players before, and yeah, it's shaping up now to be a whole new level. And, you know, I'm waiting for the news dump on this because now, as you know, this is the thing I was telling people. This would be the kind of situation that you would see like on either a Friday night dump when people aren't around, or at a time where, you know, the NFL could steal the spotlight from somebody else, or a time where they don't think people are going to get it, like Friday night, you know, Saturday afternoon, something along those lines. But as Robinson has been reporting, is the arbitrator, Sue Robinson, continues to make a decision now that looks like now this could be possibly going into training camp. And that'll be something to watch. But, yeah, those optics, I mean, you see him in training camp, it is going to be a very bad look and very, very ugly. So that's our latest Deshaun Watson update. You know, that's the other thing, too. Once we do get a decision on Watson for whatever length it'll be, I'm sure we're going to do a special report either here on Game On and or on Empty the Bench as well. So we will find out as this gets going and we get closer to the return of football, both NFL and college. We had SEC media days as well. And that just goes to show you we are getting closer and closer to the return of football. We've got baseball still going on. We've got basketball. We've got hockey. I mean, I tell you, I thought July was going to be a quiet time for us, Hank. It's been anything but. And it just continues because you know what? Next week we've got Mets-Yankees Subway Series, the first of 2 installments that'll happen on Tuesday and Wednesday next week. So we will do a deep dive into the Mets and the Yankees next week on the show and whatever else breaks because, I'm sure something else is going to happen between now and then as well. I will say also real quick, a quick programming note for you. Episode 19 of Game On with Hank and myself, it is going to premiere on Monday next week. So Monday the 25th at 3 p.m. Eastern. So just make that note. We are going to premiere the show a day earlier than normal, but still you can check it out Tuesday and any day you want if you can't be around for the premiere on Monday. But just a note, next week's show will premiere on Monday at 3 p.m. So for Hank and Dictor, Hank, thanks again as always. It was fun.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Donnie.
Absolutely. And LGY and LGR and LGG. I think it LGK. Yeah, LGG just doesn't seem right, but we'll find a way to make that work. But it's fun times, Hank. But so for Hank, thanks again. For Hank and Dictor, I'm Johnny Montalbano. This has been Game On the Empty the Bench Podcast Network presented by Knack, and we will see you again on Monday.